Good morning. All right, that's it. That's all I've got in.
So this is what I
They've got 3 good mornings and that's it. Okay. I trust you thought about the higher reaches of your ray charts, and today we're going to have a chance Ellen is going to be presenting on the third ray monad, and you know, you notice the difference in the presentations, I mean, you know, on the subject, don't you? I mean, because they really do evoke a very different quality. And then we'll have a chance, I'll try to give you an example of what one of these humongous ray charts can look like, and then you can construct your own based on one whole day of immersion in this. Now let's see, I'm sure that I'm going to see the back of Francis's head rather than my face. I don't mind that really, but no, it's okay. I'll just sit here next to the deal. This is fine.
Can I sit here?
Well, you're a pretty tall meditator. Yeah, you're good there. I noticed that yesterday.
I'll stay.
All righty. So this is just going to be a little alignment before Elena gives us her perspective on the third ray monad. You know, the thing is, do you care about your monadic ray? You do care about that. You care intensely, or do you just care? Or don't you give it?
Does it care about us?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, there's no us and there's only it. So I was just thinking about, you know, this obsession with the monadic ray is kind of interesting. I'm just stalling while people come in. It is really interesting because if you want to get to the bottom of what you, or to the center of what you really are, you have to deal with that. Please do come in and join us. Okay. And you know, like I said the other day, everything is the monad. There's nothing that's not the monad. It's just a question of the degree of circumscription, the degree of confinement, the degree of confinement of that identification potential and of the consciousness. I mean, monad has soul, if you know what I mean. If you call soul consciousness, monad has soul. And I was just thinking last night, you know, we talk about this volatile essence going into the sea of fire and going into those 3 things, but look, a planetary logos or a solar logos has all kinds of vehicles on higher planes. Does it mean that going into the sea of fire that man should suddenly lose the potential of having any vehicles? There still will be the embedded monad in whatever new and subtler type of vehicle is used on these higher planes. So it won't just be, what can we call it, you know, it won't be a wipeout. You know, in other words, the sea of fire equips the monad with something else, and then on the cosmic astral plane with something else, and the cosmic mental plane with something else. And always there is this embedded factor that we call pure being. It's deeply, so deeply embedded that you have to get rid of all of these vehicles in order to do it until the universe itself becomes your one vehicle, then you get rid of that periodically forever. All right, and on that theme, so okay, so what we've been doing is considering ourselves as a being, an essential monad, and surrounded by, or at our disposal, various types of vehicles on various levels, and we've been discussing gaining freedom from those vehicles and also utilizing the ray energies of them. So this is just very quick because there's a lot to do this morning, and I actually feel the need to let us go earlier because the conference is starting tonight, the main conference, and we want to be totally stable about that. So just run your inner eye over your energy system. It's more expanded now than we usually consider it to be. So we're still very much on the cosmic physical plane, even as the greatest of our particular masters and Chohans are. So there's no escape from that. But somewhere in the sea of fire, there's the Father and Son and the Holy Ghost, which are basically like three Buddhas of activity surrounding Sanat Kumara. Only in this case, they're like three Buddhas of activity surrounding the Solar Logos. And who knows, usually there are three more, so we might get to six and nothing is said. But somewhere up there on the cosmic physical plane is our volatile essence, which is the essential electric spark, which is, for our purposes, pure being. And that's on the cosmic physical plane what we most essentially are. And it's a little out of reach for this extension that we have become, but we can conceptualize. And then descending to the monadic plane, there are 7 great circles of sound, we might say, in the Akasha, and somehow we have a home there as well in one of those 7. So we have all these homes, you know. And then descending further into the area where the consciousness of the Masters is always focused and where we might receive something, are the planes of the spiritual triad, Atma, Buddhi, Manas. And these vehicles which we will need, none of them is complete in our cases and are being developed on the basis of these triadal permanent atoms. So maybe the next thing we're going to be developing is the Buddhic vehicle, coordinating it, organizing it, etc. And there is here a kind of a planetary extension of our consciousness. It's getting easier and easier to participate planetarily because of the advancements of technology. And on the higher levels of the monad, who knows, we may even begin to participate in the solar systemic sense if we were really there. Then, out of the cosmic etheric vehicle, we plunge further into the dense physical body of the Solar Logos. That's the lower 21 subplanes, he tells us. And there, with our own monadic impulsion and the assistance of a partial presence of the solar angel, we're building a vehicle of faculty and consciousness that we call the causal body. And that's, for all of us, I dare say, a work in progress. And all of this vehicle, it has rays associated with it and capacities that are maybe linked to the triad and its 2 rays, and to the monad and the 2 kinds of rays we have been discussing. And then cyclically from the egoic lotus causal body is generated a personality very much on the dense level of the planetary logos, and there will be ray characteristics according to the supervision of the solar angel, who decides basically what we need to round out and become more fulfilled according to a higher design. And so these rays we're more familiar with, and they deal with more concrete factors in our makeup. But it all starts, at least on the cosmic physical plane, with some kind of design, some kind of role we play, at this time anyway, within the expression of our planetary logos. There's a design there. It didn't start with the planetary logos, but we're in that. We're in the planetary logos, especially in his heart center, etheric heart center on the second subplane. And from another point of view, a still higher point of view, within his head center, which I think is all taking place in the sea of fire. Now he has other chakras just like we do. We have astral chakras and we have mental chakras and so forth. So these vortices of force continue rising. So what we're trying to do here is get some kind of grasp about who we are or could be on the higher planes. It's speculative, but it may also be sentient, if you know what I mean. We can begin to feel these things, and especially as changes occur. So the whole thing is directed from above, and in a deeper sense, we are the director. Remember the three terms: the director, the teacher, and the manipulator. So that's the top to the bottom, at least in terms of the cosmic physical plane. Obviously, something very profound occurs, because if there's such a thing as the top of the 10 dimensions of the universe, we are there too. And so what we hope from this workshop is at least a cognitive sense of expanded participation in dimensions usually considered inaccessible or irrelevant to our present situation. And even if we just have the concept without all the feeling and impression that will come later, we have something. So as we listen to the lectures today and try to determine, even conceptually, what we might look like in ray areas we've never considered before, we'll hold this big alignment in mind. And of course it can only grow as we begin to amalgamate with other units and form group beings and so forth in the future. So let's just sound the Om and confirm that we're going to hold a vision of the cosmic physical plane and our present and potential participation within it. Om. And I get very excited about this subject. I just think it has the tremendous potential to de-encapsulate us, if I can say. We're so crunched in our present conception of what we are, and we can get a little bit uncrunched, and begin to expand and deepen and identify and be more and more a part of things, which we essentially are, but we don't know it, and we can begin to know it, Okay, so yesterday we, with Francis and Tuya, we worked on some of the very interesting characteristics of the first and the second ray monad. And today we will continue with Elena will present some factors on the third ray monad, and then we'll have a chance to meditate and to form charts of interest for ourselves, which will be speculative and perhaps lead us into further realization. So, Elena.
Thank you, Michael. Well, without any further ado, as I said, everything has been said, by Michael to prepare the talks on the first, second, and third ray monads. So I will share some of my many hypothetical ideas in this presentation, giving you some ideas what you should take with you, and some, from direct references, and to ponder on them. So, on the systemic monadic plane are found the human monads on the three primary major rays of aspect 1, 2, 3. And the third ray monads of activity are found on the third monadic subplane. And each of these rays has its 7 subrays, which correspond to all the 7 monadic subrays. Okay? So it means the third ray monad on the third monadic subplane has 7 subrays on the monadic plane. And it is through these 7 subrays we are reaching the primary monad, okay, as a first road to it. It means it's a 3-1, 3-2, 3-4, 3-6, 3-5, 3-6, 3-7, all on the major monadic ray 3. It means we have a combination of 2 qualities with it, the 3 and the 7 subrays. It is hopeful I would say that the secondary line on 9 division in the triad relate to the secondary ray of the monad, because we have a primary ray of the monad and a secondary ray beside the 7 subrays. Okay? It is not occurring independently. We need to synthesize eventually the whole picture, you see. And this, which becomes, not so easy process, and we are still in a process of learning how to bring this about, okay? Because the primary ray of the monad has a primary triadal focus, okay, which has already been discussed. And it appears that in relation, there is a relation between the secondary triadal focus, the right column of the triad, and also with the primary soul ray, which also has a primary and secondary rays. And maybe the secondary soul ray is a key to our true identity as on that level, which is merging with the identity of the monad through the triadal focus. And it is possible that maybe everyone begins with a secondary and manasic focus in the triad. It means we start with the manas and with the four rays, 4, 5, 6, 7, which are the rays of manas. Now, if you see the third ray monad, primary focus in the triad is manas, the lowest aspect of the triad. So if the expression of that, of the higher mind, because we're talking with the higher mind, with the manasic permanent atom on the first mental subplane, there also the will of the monad will be in connection with, I'm talking third ray monad now, with civilizations and cultures for which the third department is responsible. And there will be the carrying out of the will of God in the large and general plans. It is the will as it expresses itself primarily through the atmic, I would say, ninefold focus of the triad. First of all, and it will function in relation to the races, nations, and the kingdoms in nature, and to great planetary arrangements at present unknown to us. Now, the will of the third ray monad is closely related to the will to evolution. Evolution beyond the form and consciousness as we know it. Thus, we need to interpret the third ray in terms of the will, not in terms of consciousness, as we usually interpret the rays. Okay? Now, the third ray will to evolve deals with that which develops sensory perception into knowledge, knowledge into wisdom, and wisdom into omniscience. And we all know that this process, particularly, it starts with the transmutation of knowledge into wisdom, which take the first 3 initiation to accomplished. Okay? And with the monad, we're going higher with this process. Okay? Again, we're starting, with the mind, with the manas. Okay? You know, my mouse is new one. It doesn't work very well.
They never do.
Oh, this one. Don't worry. So the third ray will represents the third aspect also of the Shambhala energy, which is related to livingness and that state of being which eventually negates the power of death. Remember, I'm talking the third ray here, monad, third ray will, okay? We must not interpret these terms of death as it affects the form, okay? We must eventually express the dynamic, creative will, which is not only the cause of manifestation and the guarantee of achievement, but is the proof of the potency of that life, that with capital T and L, which ever defeats and annihilates death. So we're talking about death from the very high level here, not in relation, to the form. And the expression of the third ray monad through the third ray mind and the use of the will would be in connection, as I said, with the third department, carrying out the will of God in the larger context, larger plans. The nature of the will is not easy to define, and only the monad responds to its impact. Thus, only the third degree initiate is beginning to somehow grasp its nature. Okay? The realization of the third ray monad is of a kind of oneness through activity. It knows itself to be synthesis in action. So it experiences itself as wholeness in motion. The third ray monad achieves identification by active, profound, and abstract, intuitively inspired thought which reveals them to be one necessarily and which manipulatively brings the skillful removal of all barriers to that oneness. Now, just to maybe recapitulate that the monad on the monadic plane has two rays, primary and secondary. Okay? So the primary ray of the monad indicates the three major aspects of the triad, Atma, Buddhi, and Manas. And its secondary ray, the ninefold division and right column in the triad. And the soul also has primary and secondary ray, and the secondary ray is not its sub-ray, okay? Which again, has its different meaning. And the secondary soul ray has also relation to the secondary triadal focus. And to my present understanding, the secondary ray has a relation to the primary monadic ray. It means that we could go through the secondary soul ray towards the primary monadic ray, and this is not the only route to that primary ray. Okay? And at the third initiation, there is revealed to the initiate the purpose of the secondary soul ray, again my understanding, which will eventually enable him along the line of least resistance to find the primary ray of his monad. Now you see, I'm going to technicalities here, okay? Which, you know, I tend to do. And sharing some of my present understanding, okay? As we already been told, the primary ray of the monad does not change and continues through the aeons, whatever that aeon mean. And the primary ray of the soul changes from round to round, and in a more evolved souls from race to race. Okay? So we have two different cycles here taking place, but they are all related. Everything is related to everything else.
Can you repeat that? The primary?
The primary ray of the monad does not change, right? But the secondary ray of the soul changes from round, you know, the big rounds, and in more evolved souls from race to race, because it's the round to round is a longer cycle.
You mean race as a human race?
The human.
Oh, right.
Yes.
I was thinking race.
No, race.
Race.
Right.
Because these cycles, one is larger and one is shorter. That's why the more evolved souls could change the soul, primary soul ray through the races. You know how we progress races, and there come sub-races. You know, that is another area to consider. Maybe to the secondary soul ray would be involved, particularly through, I have the impression, through the sub-races, not race. Okay? Anything what is sub, you see, has to be considered in order to get to the major primary stuff, or ray, ray. Now, the monadic influence is registered at the first initiation, but only by the soul of the initiate and on the level of soul consciousness. It is never registered in his brain because the vibration is too high at that stage of the first initiation. You see? The soul on its own plane, as a result of the registration of this monadic influence, again to my understanding, turns its interest gradually towards the triad at that point. Okay? Now, at the second initiation, with some measure of the first conscious recognition and expression of the will, there is a constant reorientation of the soul towards the monad. Why? Because at the second initiation, there is the first conscious, somewhat conscious, not whole conscious, expression and recognition of the will. Okay? And so, the power of the monad is experienced by the initiate of the second degree, also now in his brain. not only by the soul on its own plane. You see? And the process of the soul-mind-brain alignment start to really also consciously be involved to some degree. Even the full working of these energies and alignment is the third initiation. But the second is the, I would say, major initiation for us to take. That's why it is not easy to take, because there are so many things has to be in place at that initiation. The antakarana between the lower and higher mind and the soul, the triangle there must be functioning and in place. The transmutation from the sacral to the throat must be finalized at that initiation. You know, so that's why, you know, when we say we have taken the second initiation, we have to think very carefully. Okay? Because after that, everything is speeded up tremendously. As Michael pointed out, how many initiation we can take in one life. Okay? That's why I think the gap between the first and second initiation is maybe longer than we estimate to be. Okay? And then there are sub-stages, you see, during this gap. Sub-stages. Okay? Where we find, you know, the 2 or 3 stages of the 6 stages of discipleship. I don't want to go into these details. But, you know, they are very important through which we're going learning so much. Okay? And everybody has a different process and different speed. Through the application of discipline, you know, responsibilities and all these qualities. There are more than that, but, you know, I'm just bringing some, because this is important in relation how we accessing the monad here. Okay? Through the initiatory process. Okay? You know, there is this word express at the second initiation. Okay? Which is looked at, from my understanding, from the, again, higher level of understanding that word. So this is given at the second initiation in its deepest meaning and indicates the command to express the will nature. You see? Of the monad. Of the monad. And possibly through the 7 sub-rays of the monad on the monadic plane, where we're dealing with the will primarily. Okay? And to embody the purpose which lies behind the plan as a result of a developed sensitivity. Okay? Now, Michael would now put on the screen the reference in Initiation Human Solar 121. And you know, if we read it very carefully, this reference, it can be understood and interpreted again from a different level of understanding this reference, okay? And I'm not going to spend time going in detail through this, okay? But because it deals with the third initiation here, okay? As we see there, that it is revealed to the initiate the purpose of the sub-ray, of the ray to which he belongs. He doesn't say which sub-ray, does he? Okay? That upon which his ego, which could be the monad, okay, finds itself. Now the subray could be one of the 7 on the monadic plane, or it could involve even the secondary subray of the monad to some degree, okay? And we see that all egoic units are upon some subray of the monadic ray, okay? Now, egoic units, is he talking about the souls? Or is he talking about the subrays? Okay? Or even the secondary ray of the soul. And this knowledge is conferred upon the initiate to enable him eventually to find for himself, as a line of least resistance, the ray of his monad. Now again, is it the secondary ray of the monad or the primary ray? You see, these details have to be determined because they are very important into the large picture here. This subray bears upon its stream of energy many groups of egos, and he capitalized the E here. Is it a group souls? Or is it a group monads? Do we have group monads also? You see? This is a hint of it here. And the initiate is therefore made aware not only of his own egoic group, it means could be the soul group and its intelligent purpose, but of many other groups similarly composed. And the united energy is working towards a clearly defined goal, possibly related to the plan. Okay? And knowing the purpose behind the plan, and the purpose is we're going to the monad with that. Okay? So this is, I thought, very important reference to determine, these levels of the soul race and the monadic race and the sub-race and secondary race. You see? Because everything is working through the triad first. Okay? And we need to know how. So this is the synthesizing process which need to be done. Okay? Very carefully to now bring all these energies together. Now, after the third initiation, we find ourselves gradually, I think, under the influence of one of the primary monadic rays. Okay? The secondary soul ray begins to blend, again my understanding, with either the primary or secondary ray of the monad. And the final stage of soul unfoldment begins where duality gives place to identification. The final process where the soul becomes absorbed into synthesis through identification, that even the group consciousness fades out, and as we go through the fourth and fifth initiation, because it is the fifth initiation which takes us to the monadic level. It means to the monadic energy. Okay? Now the primary third ray monad works through the manasic aspect of the triad. This doesn't change for a long time. Now, its secondary ray, my understanding, has a choice of 3 rays or sub-rays in the triad. In the monastic aspect, it means 3-1, 3-2, 3-3. And this change, okay? So both the monadic and soul rays are involved in this change from different strengths and focus and perspective, okay? Now, I am giving some revolutionary ideas here, as Michael said. So, in a way, the monastic permanent atom, which represents the abstract mind and which I think is the brain of the soul, because it is through the brain the higher energy of the triad is coming to the soul and from the soul to us, through the mind to our brain. And it is the root, the monastic permanent atom, of the causal body of the soul. So it's the same ray as the primary ray of the soul, which is also the ray of all triadal permanent atoms. That's why the soul ray is the same as the triadal ray. Okay? Obviously, there are some other energies involving creating of the causal body, like the solar angels. Okay? And I'm not going to go into that. I'm just focusing on the manas here, okay, which is also the core, the manasic energy of the abstract, as we know, abstract mind is the core also of the energy building the causal body, okay? That's why the same ray in the triad. That's why I say everything is related to everything else. Okay? And we will reach this dual focus within the soul triad after the third initiation. Okay? Again, this is a process which is very individual, how quickly it is achieved. When we will work through the dual ray of the soul, which will be subsidiary to the dual ray within the spiritual triad and the dual ray of the monad. You see, I am bringing all this now sort of into synthetic picture. All this has necessarily also relation to the ashramic and sub-ashramic positions and responsibilities. It means we need to consider the entry into the center of the triad through the 12 pillars. Okay? And then each ashram has 7 sub-ashrams. And this is all related to this process. Okay? When we say that the ray of the triad is the same as the ray of the causal body, it is at any one time either atmic, buddhic, or manasic. Okay? Which is further divided into the 9 sub-rays, we can call them, of the triad. Because each monad has 3 focal points, right? So, each of the 3 monads on the monadic plane have 7 subrays, as I said already, expressing on the monadic plane. So when we initially talk of the ray of the monad, we are talking about one of these 7 rays. Okay? Thus we start to approach the monadic rays through the manasic aspect. That's why, my analogy I mentioned there between entering the 3rd kingdom through manas, the 5th kingdom, spiritual kingdom through manas, that we need to deal with the manas first, going up. It means the rays of the manasic aspect, which are 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay? To experience the monad, synthesis must be functioning for us in some measure. Synthesis, purpose, and will are the primary keywords, of the 7 rays on the monadic, 7 subrays on the monadic plane, as we are approaching the monad. Okay? And must be understood and interpreted on the basis of these attributes in relation to the primary ray of the monad. Okay? It means there would be combination always of 2 rays involved. And I will give some examples of that. So as I said before, 3rd ray monad, as we are focusing here, would be 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 3, 5, 3, 6, 3, 7. Now, Michael would kindly put the cosmic fire reference on page 704.
This is 7 foot. It disappeared.
Just
Yes,
there.
I've got
Yes.
it. I've got it.
You can highlight it.
I will
in a
highlight
second.
it.
We are focusing on this division here, which is very important in relation particularly to the 3rd ray monad. Okay? Because manas,
It's the best I can do at the moment. So I mentioned here.
am I on?
Yeah.
I am on now.
You are.
Okay. Manas is the synthesis of 5 rays. The 4 minor rays or rays of attribute, 4, 5, 6, 7, which are synthesized by the 3rd ray of aspect. And these 5 are known as the 5 rays of manas, or 5 kumaras. Okay? Again, it's a big subject, kumaras, and I'm not going to go into that. This is purely to bring our focus on these divisions. The 5th ray is the ray of the 5th kumara. And under the septenary,
Here.
is it working?
Press the button. Press the button.
I am.
Go.
Oh, you're shooting yourself.
Sorry. Sorry. Under the septenary enumeration here, you see, it holds the 5th place, the 5th kumara. Okay? But under the 5-fold division, you see where the 5th kumara is? It is the Lord of the 7th ray. Okay? Now, and he holds here the 3rd place. You see? We have this relation between 5 and 3. And they are the primary mental race. That's why I'm bringing this into our attention here, okay? Now, you see this 3-5 relation link the mental and atomic planes. The atomic planes is the higher aspect of the abstract mind or manas, and third ray monad works through the higher mind, okay, which is the lowest aspect of the triad, okay. So for me, could I have it back?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there we go.
For me, this relationship here is of prime importance, because when we reach a life or lives are going through this 3-5, where the third ray monad has a fifth subray on the monadic plane, we have a very strong focus on the manas. And that's why I'm basically bringing this up, okay? Which I will relate what kind of energies we find when we find ourselves having this focus, you see? And now, thank you. So the first manasic experience of the manas is through the 4 rays of attribute, which is then synthesized to the third ray. Okay? So when the mind is developed and functioning, it opens the connection to the third ray of aspect as the synthesizing energy of the 4 rays of attribute. That's why we know how very important is to first develop the mind, I mean the concrete mind now for us, focus it on the mental plane, stabilize it there, and that's why we are working from the 4th mental subplane, where we create the point of tension when we are going to the triad and projecting from there. Okay? Now, discrimination is one of the attributes of manas. And we have a number of levels of discrimination, from the lowest to the highest also. So when we start to discriminate between the quality or soul and that of being, pure being or monad, we are opening the door to the monad. You see? The monads on the third ray are adept at abstraction, as you know, abstract mind here, through the mind, and they developed capacity for abstraction contributes to their impersonality. Okay? And also the third ray monad achieves impersonality and abstraction by entering into the mind of God, thus start to align with the God's mind, thinking the thoughts along that line. We're going now to the highest level of that. Okay? Now, a subray is a modifying influence of the primary rays upon which it stands as a subray. Okay? Whose influence is intensified. You know, the primary rays upon which the subray is automatically become stronger. Okay? And particularly when its own subray, in this case, the third ray monad, third ray subray, comes in a particular life or lives. Okay? Which is the closest to its primary energy. Okay? And begin to be expressed or utilized in a particular life or lives. Now, in the case of the third ray monad and its 7 subrays on the monadic ray, this would be the 3-3 and the 3-5. Because they are along its own energy, which is manas. Okay? Reflecting the 3-5 relation in the placement of the 5th Kumara there in the twofold enumerations. Okay? Now, I will give you some examples here of this relationship between the third ray monad and its subrays on the monadic plane. Okay? Starting with the 3-3, as I'm mentioning it here, even I should go from the 3-1, which I will later bring. We would emphasize here also the third ray personality of our planetary logos. You know our Earth is non-sacred planet, okay? And it does not function or utilize its monadic ray yet, right?
Not yet.
Okay. So, it is the third ray personality of our planetary logos, which is that of selective adaptability as the prime attribute of the third ray or Brahma aspect. As the attribute of intelligence, it adapts the matter aspect to the spirit aspect. Now, this strong third ray combination brings in also the discrimination through mental activity. The ability to plan, arrange, think creatively and abstractly is considerably enhanced here, okay? With intelligent connection to a wide diversity of sources of information, which are all brought together, okay? Now, this one I added at the last moment here, so I don't know. I thought if I mentioned the moon chain, you know, we always talk about moon chain and third ray monads. So, the monad with this combination would have a strong resonance to the past also, right? Third aspect was strongly manifesting in the previous solar system, okay? To the past chain, and it means the moon chain here, to human history, okay? And so, you know, with the third aspect is the material life also, aspect of life. That which has been inherited from the past. So we see that materialism and continuation with the past are to be avoided. An effort may be necessary to instruct the monad on this ray and subray, that the less active and more consciously sensitive curriculum of this second ray solar system, on the second ray, is the order of today and not revert to the past. Okay? Focus upon the third subplane of the monadic plane. With this combination 3-3 is almost definitely confirmed. Okay? When the monad has this combination of energies, I meant, okay? Third monadic subplane with a third subray, okay? This is what I'm saying. The objective of refocusing upon the second subplane, Michael, you were mentioning this, and learning, living, loving, and thinking, which will make this refocusing, easier and possible. Okay? So those of us who will find ourselves with this combination, need to particularly work with this. Okay? So I have mentioned the moon chain now. Because I thought, how can I leave this out talking about the third ray monad? Okay. Now you see, now the 5-3 combination, which I brought the focus on the division of the dual division of the rays. So when we get to the fifth ray as a monadic subray of the third ray monad on the monadic plane, we get here very powerful combination which can bring, the scientific aspect of the fifth ray, okay, with the mind here. The third ray monad as the manipulating energy with the scientific detailed knowledge of the fifth ray. So we might find here scientists, for example, or learning to become, to work in this area. Because we are dealing, combination, factual, detailed knowledge, and abstract, diversified fields of forces and energies here are linked together. So, to seek to make rational one, out of this, all this impression, wholeness, the whole picture. And so, with this type of monadic combination, people would be known for their genius. Genius. We have a genius here, potential. Okay? Invention. New ideas. We have Uranus strong here, which is conditioned by 5-3 on its own level. Okay? The vast picture and understanding of many cycles. Cycles come under third ray. Okay? And their interplay would be supported by that detailed knowledge. As expressing through any particular form. Okay? And I should mention that, through the fifth monadic subray, Michael is looking at the watch already.
You mentioned cycles.
Yes. Okay. So, the fifth monadic subray through the atmic or nirvanic mind also with this combination, okay? As the higher aspect of the manas or abstract mind, linking the atomic plane with the mental plane. The fifth ray brings in the dimensions of the concrete and soul mind, or son of mind also, upon the mental plane, because we're dealing with the cause of body related to that manas there, okay? So giving the monad access to wide sources, and this would be one of them. Also, I see the reflection of the third subplane of the atomic plane, where we find all knowledge, the quality of all knowledge. Okay? That is another reflection here. Now, I would imagine that these 3-3 or 3-5 combinations in relation to the third ray monad would be more intensive and progressing in this manasic, lower and higher energies of that, as I mentioned, than the other sub-rays of the monad, of the third ray monad. And that would apply for the other two, first ray and second ray monads, when there is alignment of these same or rays or sub-rays. You see? We would have same principle applied there. It means through this life or lives, we would probably make a big jump forward in that particular energy, expression of it. Now, I'm coming slowly to the end, but not quite. Because I would like to give some few ideas. If the first ray is the monadic subray of the third ray monad, we have 1-3 energies coming together. And where we would have the manipulative third ray energy modified by the destructive power of the first ray. Okay? So the destructive aspect of the first ray makes the initiate with this combination, excellent at the destruction of illusion. So, added purpose or purposefulness joins the acute third ray intelligence here. And the method of achieving synthesis would be assertion of the first principles from God's comprehensive thought, which grasp with great acuity the whole picture. That's why I mentioned there, thinking this along the same line, the third ray monad, as the mind of God. Okay? Method of liberation into the life of the spirit would involve detachment from a lesser and limiting thought and going directly and deeply into the mind of God. So those with this type of monadic combination would have a very high sense of also of the priority, knowing what is the immediate aspect of the plan which was due for immediate expression. Because here we are dealing with the purpose behind the plan. You see? And this combination with the first first ray of the purpose, and the plan, which is more to the third ray, and its immediate expression would find easy to ascertain here with this combination, I think. Okay? Now, if the second ray is the monadic subray of the third ray monad, we have the manipulative energy of the third ray energy modified by the skills of the teaching ability, second ray, okay, with the added quality of wisdom, love wisdom, more loving application of the plan. So to the knowledge of the third ray monad is added wisdom of the second ray, primarily wisdom here. Okay, we're dealing with the monad. Okay? Even though we can say that behind each monadic ray is love, yes, but now we are focusing in a more detail of this combination, okay? Which is bringing a deeper psychological understanding of the knowledge and its better application. Well, I'm going to skip one thing here, which I don't want to divert now. I'm talking to myself. Synthesis would be achieved through inclusion of the many parts of the whole picture here with this combination. Okay? We're talking 2, 3 now, right? Which brings really more, I would say, using correct understanding or infallible understanding of the reasons why these many must be one. Okay? Now, this combination for me reflects or has analogy to the third aspect of the second ray, of meticulous entirety. You see? Where we're working with the parts and bringing it all together into one whole. Okay? The manas can easily unite with buddhi and the thought with intuition. You see? Okay. Now, again, looking at the watch.
Well, you have till 10:30. 11 minutes.
Okay. I will try to go through this very fast now. If the fourth ray is the monadic subray of the third ray monad, we have the harmonizing, intuitive, artistic creativity added to this third ray manipulative, creative thinking here, which would make this combination very creative, the most creative combination. Okay? Where synthesis would be achieved through some of these, I picked from your thoughts, Michael, telepathically now. Through intelligent recognition of the living harmony within the whole and of the unity and beauty. You see? Now, skipping up. If we have a sixth subray, monadic subray of the third ray monad, the devotion of the sixth ray is added again to the planning, creative thinking, manipulative energy, and the abstract thought and abstract idealism, you see, towards idealization of the abstract energy, of the abstract thought thinking. Capacity of inspiration for great ideas and to inspire others in the quest, which reminds me of Sagittarian quest with the 6 rays through there, in relation, which I would mention, okay. Inspire others in the quest for comprehensive mental understanding. Because the idea and the ideal are bringing into unity here through these 2 rays. Okay? Now, these rays are active, as we know, at the sixth initiation. And the 3rd ray also rules the 6th initiation. So we see we have also by the numbers relation here to that initiation. And we have the correlation of the 6th or monadic plane counting from below, the plane of the monad, and also the great quest capitalized, G and Q, which start to be a beginning of which is represented the 6th initiation. Okay? Again, you see, sometimes ago you mentioned, Michael, yourself, that Sagittarius could be somehow involved with the 6th initiation. Okay? Now, the 3rd ray monad with the 7th monadic subray, you know, we have a magical energy here, the ritual coming in with the 7th ray. A magical ritualistic combination for you two, yeah. You know, it brings the capacity, you know, to regulate, control all the forces, ritualize all the rhythmic rhythms of the energetic, you know, picture there. Okay. It is promoting the interplay of the mind, also of the dense matter, because 7th ray rule also the physical plane, right? It rules the etheric. The etheric field comes with this combination, okay? Etheric nature for the intelligent redemption of matter. Okay? So this combination would have, you know, somebody using it would have ability in the science of creative manifestation material sphere, which would serve the planetary logos, okay, as a great, you know, these would be people who manifest, okay, who manifest something which is coming through this combination on the monadic level, okay? So the planetary purpose expressed as planetary plan, okay, would be in that case manifesting almost to perfection, I would say, with the 7th ray here, or increasing perfection, okay? And there is also cooperation, because we dealing, you know, when we talking about the monads, there is Deva monads and human monads. And here, the 2 kingdoms could cooperate more together, okay? Now, Michael, that is the end of my presentation. Did you time it? Did you time it?
No, very, very. Okay, no, it's excellent, and Tez, I'm very happy about this presentation and the 3 presentations we've received, all with different coloring.
Yes.
You know, you can tell the rays of the individuals as they present, you know, on their particular subjects. I'm not saying that Francis is a first-ray monad, unless overnight he's decided that is the case. But
By the way, I consider myself third ray monad.
Can you doubt? Can you doubt it? And that's going to be very interesting. And that's what we're going to try to have a chance to assess in the next couple of hours or so. I mean,
Because we have to should have the time for questions.
yes, we're going to do that. It'll all come. I tell you what, we're not going to go any further than 2:00 this afternoon, or 12:30 this afternoon, because there's so much to prepare for the main conference. But I think we've gotten a very fine presentation of the monadic possibilities of the major rays. Now, I have this book that I wrote long ago, and I forget when, maybe 2004 or whatever, where 21 combinations are set forth. And you may, from reading that and also here listening to what Elena has said.
I read it.
Okay. Okay. You may get a start on your own combination. You see what I mean? In other words, our assumption here is that these high considerations are not irrelevant. Otherwise, why would DK bother to give them to us? You know, he's turned us in the right direction. So we can always say, well, all you can do, you can only think about the soul. Okay, we know that we're not totally soul-infused beings yet, and that's true, and we're working on that. But he's given us the Antikarana, he's given us the 9-fold choice of rays for the triad, he's given us 7 monadic rays and great selections from the old commentary, and then he's put 3 little circles within the sea of fire, which invites speculation. So indeed. So we are
to the chakras.
Yes, and that too. In other words, DK does allow us to fill in the blanks. If he says 35 vortices of fire make a master, he's suggesting that 42 make a Chohan and 49 make a Chohan of the 7th degree. So he gives us a hint, and we carry it further. Now, we're going to take a little break.
Thank you. Oh.
Yes, we're going to take a little break and come back in the usual 12 minutes, which always turns into 15.
Yes.
And then we will carry it further in your own cases, okay? And we'll talk about how to make one of these big ray charts, and then we'll have a chance to meditate upon it. Okay, so you have a few minutes.